Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES for 10% off any purchase over $10. If you use that promo code between now and January 28th, you will automatically be entered in a drawing to win a Ravnica Allegiance booster box. Check out the description below for details. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another day of Ravnica Allegiance previews. We're going to recap and analyze all the cards that were previewed over the last 24 hours or so. And as always, if you're interested in the sources of these preview cards, just check out the description below. I listed them all there. Quickly before we get started, just a fast reminder, also in the description below, you'll find ways to support the channel. Our Patreon page is down there. You're also going to find links to products on Amazon. Anything you purchase on Amazon, no matter what it is, will get a small percentage for the channel if you go through that link. Finally, Flipside Gaming still offering a promo code for our viewers. Hopefully you can save a little bit of cash while you support us. But as always, thank you not only to the folks that look at those links, but to each and every one of you. Y'all make the channel what it is, so thank you. And let's get into it. Angel of Grace. Now this one's a mythic. I kind of like the take on Angel's Grace, the name of another card, and you'll see why in just a second. 2 white and 3. It's a creature angel, 5/4. Flash, flying. When this enters the battlefield until end of turn, damage that would reduce your life total to less than 1 reduces it to 1 instead. 2 white and 4, exile Angel of Grace from your graveyard. Your life total becomes 10. Okay, there's a lot happening here for 5 mana. Let me cut to the chase. This is a pretty good mythic. I do think it will see standard play. Where do I play this card? Maybe in the Angel deck. I mean, the Angel deck had a pretty good season last time around. Started to disappear a little bit towards the end, but it's getting some new tools here, including this one. Maybe it revitalizes the deck a little bit. That's something to watch for. I could see myself maybe even putting this in some control builds out of the sideboard as well. It is a good way to deal with things like Banefire, for example, so I do find that kind of interesting. So in some capacity, I have no doubt we'll see this thing show up in Standard. In Limited, I don't think I need to tell you this. It's a mythic. You're not going to see it a lot, but wow, if you happen to open this in a draft pack or get it in your sealed pool, you're going to be really, really happy to play this card. It's going to be extremely good for you. I mean, just a 5/4 flyer with Flash is really good for 5, and then you got the other abilities to boot. Also, Commander players, you like the Angel Tribal? This is going to be a good card for you too. This next card comes to us from a Spanish language preview, Spirit of the Spires. It costs a white and 3. It's a spirit flying 2/4. Other creatures you control with flying get +0/+1. So pay attention to this one because there's a complement card coming up in a few minutes. Now, this is good for Limited. I think this is actually a very good draft or sealed card. A 2/4 flyer for 4 is actually pretty decent on its own, and then you get this other ability attached to it as well. And if you're playing maybe a little bit of Afterlife or something like that in your deck, obviously this will go a long way to make those tokens even more durable. That's actually pretty decent. I don't see it crossing over into Standard, though, because I think for the casting cost of 4, it needs to do more than that. It's a little too dependent on current board state and a little too expensive to feel like it's going to do well there. But definitely, draft or sealed, I'm going to be happy to pick this up. Maybe in some packs even, just maybe in a draft, it could be first pickable, depending on what your rare is, if your rare is a little more niche. Also, if you want to play some crazy Spirit deck in Commander, this could be pretty cool in there, too. Arrester's Admonition. This is going to cost a blue and 2. It's an instant common. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Addendum. If you cast the spell during your main phase, draw a card. That's actually kind of good. I mean, many times the appeal of cards like this is you can kind of play them on the fly, and 3 casting costs feels a little heavy for this effect generally. Now granted, many times I might still get stuck playing this at instant speed to protect myself, protect a creature. However, if I can play this on my own turn, that Addendum becomes really, really strong. Being able to bounce my opponent's best creature, and then drawing a card off this, just replacing it, that's a nice little tempo play. Maybe, just maybe, this sees a little standard play because of that. I want to try it out, maybe the mono blue tempo deck, maybe even in a control build out of the sideboard or something, just kind of see how it plays. I don't like the fact that it costs 3, but I really like the upside of this card. Benthic Biomancer. This costs 1 blue. It's a Merfolk Wizard Mutant, and this is a rare 1/1. Adapt 1 cost of a blue and 1. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on this, draw a card, then discard a card, so you get to loot. Now, I've been saying over the last couple weeks that we keep getting more cards that would really help standard Merfolk. This is just another one. There's plenty of ways to put +1/+1 counters on Merfolk in that particular build or variations of that build that we've seen over the last few months. And this is just another card that could definitely benefit from that. Not only getting bigger as time goes on, but also letting you loot, throw away those extra lands, keep the heat coming. Very important for that deck, which basically at heart is an aggro deck in a lot of ways, just with a little more flash behind it and some +1/+1 counter synergies. So I do think that this is something that we actually could see in Standard in those type of builds. How good will Merfolk be next season? I don't know. There's a lot of really good decks out there, but it is getting some real cool new tools. This is just one of them. If you've been watching these videos, you've seen a few over the last couple weeks. This is a good limited card too. Let's say I have no other ways to get +1/+1 counters on it, and all I do over the course of the game is adapt once. Okay, I basically paid 3 for a 2/2 and I got to loot. That doesn't seem like the worst thing in the world. I'd play that card if it just said that on the text. I mean, it's not overwhelmingly crazy by itself, but again, there's a lot of ways to get +1/+1 counters in this set. The card could become really good in certain builds. Casual Merfolk players as well. Here's another interesting Merfolk for you if you use +1/+1 counter strategies. Now, the other thing I do want to point out, I don't really see this doing as well in, say, Legacy or Modern Merfolk, even though there have been some different twists on Modern Merfolk over the last few months. Those decks pretty much rely on Anthem Lord effects more so than +1/+1 counters. Next card comes to us from a Portuguese language preview. It's Galdrake, blue 4, Drake, flying 3/3. This one's an uncommon. Other creatures you control with flying get +1/+0. So here's the complement to the card we talked about earlier. This one is better in a lot of ways, even though it does cost you 1 more. It's 5 altogether. You get a 3/3 flyer. It's got a little more power behind it, which is kind of nice. And aside from that, all your other creatures with flying get the power boost, which I like the power boost better than the toughness boost, especially if I have a lot of spirit tokens or something like that. So again, I feel like this is more of a limited card because of the expense here and the dependency on board state. If I'm playing like Esper colors and I have some Afterlife tokens, or maybe you can even just pull off like a blue-white flyers. We haven't seen the whole set yet. That might be possible with a little Afterlife sprinkled in. That just might be a deck. Awaken the Erstwhile. This one costs 2 black and 3. It's a rare sorcery. Each player discards all the cards in their hand, then creates that many 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. Yikes. Alright, I'm not feeling this one. This is just too expensive and too situational, too high variance for me. 5 mana is a lot to ask. If you're playing something for 5, you want a big spell. This might be a big spell, but you really have to build around it, and I don't think it's worth jumping through the hoops. It's a very specific situation for this to be good, and again, with a 5 casting cost spell, I don't want that kind of variance. I don't really see this happening in Standard. I mean, could there be some niche deck where someone builds around it? Maybe, but I'm kind of skeptical of that. Outside of Standard, do I play this in Limited? I don't know, honestly. Maybe there'll be more cards that complement this we haven't seen yet, I don't know. But right now, as it stands, if I'm in a draft, I'm going to try to avoid this card if I can and try to pick up some other things. Yes, in Limited, you might be able to kind of play around it a little bit and hold on to some extra lands or something, knowing that you're going to play it later. Maybe you could force it to be better for you than your opponent at times. But again, it just doesn't feel like it's going to be worth it most of the time. The one place where I might consider thinking about it is Commander. Certain decks, maybe a zombie deck if you have ways to enhance tokens, some ways to draw extra cards, maybe, just maybe it could be interesting in a certain build. But there's so many powerful cards in Commander, you might just find something better than this anyway. Alright, brace yourself for this one. It's Mirror March. It's a red and 5 enchantment rare. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, flip a coin until you lose a flip. For each flip you won, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Those tokens gain haste. Exile them at the beginning of the next end step. Okay, you're paying 6 for this enchantment. It does nothing on its own. And then when a non-creature token enters the battlefield, it still might not do anything. But it also could go off and be kind of crazy too. So if you could win a coin flip, let's say for example you had a big trample creature and you won the coin flip, even just one time. I don't know, that could actually be pretty good. Do you actually play this in Standard? Unfortunately, I think the answer is no, just because of the high variance behind it. Not only do you have to get this out, you gotta get a creature out, you gotta win coin flips, there's just too many variables to put this in a deck for 6 mana. But, what about Drafter Sealed? Would you use it there? Well, the right answer is probably, again, no you shouldn't because of the high variance. However, I'll be honest with you, I'm totally gonna play this, and it's never gonna work out the way I want it to work out. I'm gonna play this on turn like 7 or 8, and then I'm gonna finally get to play a creature, and it's gonna be like a 2/2. I'm going to win like 1 coin flip with that 2/2 and just attack into a 4/4. Nothing's going to happen. And I'm going to be like, oh, okay, maybe I should have played something else. But you know what? It's a fun card. And every once in a while, who knows, you might get lucky. So aside from that, there is a place where I would play it though. And that's Commander, especially if I want to play with Zender Split and a Cone. They want you to flip coins anyway, so why not flip coins with this? It could be good. So I do think there's some purpose to this card, and I do think it could be very good in one of those builds. Zoria Sky Guard. It's a blue, white, and 4 human knight uncommon 3/3 flying first strike. Creatures your opponents control get -1/-0. I do think this is a little too expensive for what it's doing in standard, unfortunately, but in limited, this is a solid card. I'd play this any opportunity that I could. This is a first pickable uncommon in many draft packs, I have no doubt. A 3/3 flying first strike for 6 feels a tad expensive, but with the first strike, that's actually not bad. That's a solid creature. And then that power cut that your opponent's creatures are going to take, that's going to make it even more difficult for them to deal with this thing. This will be a strong card in draft or sealed. Ethereal Absolution. This costs a black, a white, and 4. Enchantments, rare. Creatures you control get +1/+1. Creatures your opponents control get -1/-1. Black, white, and 2. Exile target card from an opponent's graveyard. If it was a creature card, you create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying. Okay. I don't want to count this out of standard play yet. I do think this is an interesting card. Now, there are similar cards out there already in standard that don't see all that much play, like the Immortal Sun. But with this particular set coming in, the Orzhov colors are going to play more with tokens. You have Afterlife. You also have the other token strategies that already exist. And your mana fixing is going to be great with the new Shocklands. So maybe, just maybe, this does work its way as a higher portion of the curve for some kind of token deck out there. Or maybe out of the sideboard even to deal with the token strategy. Although, I don't know how likely that is. You have Goblin Chain Whirler in the format. That just seems better, but it is a different color, so perhaps. Another build where I might want to test this out is White Weenie. Again, it might be a long shot, but you don't know until you try. So I do think this will play a small role in standard at some point. In limited, I think this is a very good card. I mean, you get the +1/+1 boost on your creatures, nice Anthem effect for 6. Granted, if you're behind, it might not be the best draw in the world, but it also takes the power toughness of your opponent's creatures down, so at least it does something. And it does give you the ability for 4 mana, assuming there is a creature card in your opponent's graveyard at any time, to make a 1/1 flyer, which is actually a 2/2 flyer in this case. So I think it does enough even when you're behind to warrant the 6 mana casting cost. Yeah, I would consider first picking this in a draft pack and maybe try to force a little Afterlife, and if that didn't work out, I could always splash one of the other colors, and it's still a good card generally. This is also a decent card for some commander builds, especially if I have a lot of small creatures, I'm looking for another Anthem effect perhaps, and you know you're going to have targets for that mana sink. This one's a Portuguese language preview, loosely translated Fireblade Artist. It's an uncommon. Black and red, human shaman with haste 2/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may sacrifice a creature. If you do, Fireblade Artist deals 2 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. Okay, let's talk about standard with this one first because it's a very solid card. It's super aggressive, 2/2 hasters for 2. I always like that. Now this one is 2 on color with a red and a black, so maybe it's not always a consistent turn 2 play, but even a turn 3 play, this is still pretty good, I think, in an aggro build. And this does play well with Spectacle if we do get Spectacle cards into standard. This also plays well with Afterlife, so this is another card that would contribute to that Mardu Aristocrat strategy, perhaps. I do think that could be a real thing, especially when I see cards like this showing up at this point. I'm glad this one's an uncommon, because I do think this will see a fair amount of standard play in a couple different builds, as long as those builds can hang in the meta. Now in limited, this is a strong uncommon, even if I don't get it out on turn 2. It's good early to beat down, and it's good late to hopefully push those last points of damage to your opponent. The fact that it's fast and contributes to Spectacle enabling and has the ability built into it as well is awesome. Just like standard, I could play this in an aggressive build with Spectacle, or I could play this in a Mardu build with Afterlife, and it's going to be good either way. Really good card here too. I could see myself picking it relatively high in a draft pack. Senate Guildmage, white and blue, human wizard, uncommon 2/2. Pay a white and tap, you gain 2 life. Pay a blue and tap, draw a card, then discard a card. So I do think this is a little too slow for standard. I mean, all these guild mages, their abilities tap them. You have to wait until they don't have summoning sickness before you can use them. They are a little fragile, being 2 toughness. Don't really think they fit well into standard for the most part. However, in limited, I think this is a great card. This might be my favorite of the guild mages we've seen so far, just because I can loot with this one. Gaining life, I don't want to ignore that. Sometimes that will be relevant. But the fact that I can pay a blue, tap this, and then loot, yeah, that's where it's at. This is a high pick uncommon for me, as a matter of fact, in a draft pack, just because of the looting. Never underestimate how good that ability can be in sealed or draft. Sharkdo Crab, yep, that's right, Sharkdo Crab. This is a blue, green, and 2 fish octopus crab, uncommon 4/4. I can pay a blue, a green, and 2 to adapt 1. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on this, tap target creature an opponent controls, That creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Okay, I don't believe these words are about to come out of my mouth, but I think Sharkdo Crab actually has a chance to see standard play. It needs a deck. I mean, there has to be some kind of +1/+1 counters deck that is viable in the format. But if there is, this could set up a winning turn for you, tapping down your opponent's stuff, attacking in with your creatures. That's kind of crazy, and it only costs 4 for a 4/4. It's got really nice stats, even if it is 2 different colors. This card is quite good. In Limited, this is a very powerful uncommon. Again, the stats are great for Limited. It's got the Adapt mechanic, the ability attached to it. If you're all in on the Simic plan of getting some +1/+1 counters thrown around, again, just like I said in Standard, this could be a win condition in Draft or Sealed for you. This is actually a pretty awesome card, and come on now, it's Sharkdo Crab, how could it not be awesome? Here's a split card, Revival and Revenge. This one's a rare. The Revival side is going to cost us 2 hybrid mana, either white or black each. Sorcery, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Revenge is black, white, and forest sorcery. Double your life total, target opponent loses half their life rounded up. Let's talk about Standard first. I do think this might see some play in the format, just because of the Revival side more so than the Revenge side. The Golgari Graveyard decks, I mean, they started off pretty decent at the beginning of the last meta. They sort of fell off as time went on, of course, but maybe some cards like this could revive it a little bit. So we'll have to see what else the set brings, but this would definitely be a step in that direction. Now, the Revenge side is kind of gravy on top in Standard. Every once in a while, who knows, it might be relevant. It is a powerful effect. But that's not why I'm playing it. I do think it's a little too expensive typically, but if I have Revival on the card, then what do I got to lose, right? In Limited, I think this is a real solid card too. The Revenge side starts to come into play a little more, I think, in your Draft and Sealed games. The Revival side will also be very good in those formats as well. I think I like this card the best, though, for Commander. In Commander, the Revenge side is actually pretty interesting because that's a huge life boost potentially. And even though it only targets one opponent, you can really knock someone's life down quite a bit with this. Thrash and Threat. This is another rare split card. Thrash. 2 Gruul hybrid mana that's red or green each. Instant. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. Threat. Green, red, and 2 sorcery. Create a 4/4 red and green beast creature token with trample. Alright, this card is phenomenal. Let's talk Standard first. This is premium removal. Now, it's not a fight mechanic. So you do have to have a creature in play, and that's kind of the nature sometimes of those green removal spells, even though this one is hybrid Gruul. But yes, I do have to have a creature in play. That is a drawback. However, if I'm in Gruul colors, hopefully most of the time I do have a sizable creature. And if that's the case, at instant speed, I can take out one of my opponent's creatures or Planeswalker. That kind of flexibility is amazing, especially for green. Having a way to get rid of a Planeswalker efficiently is very good. The Threat side's cool, it's not amazing, but if I don't need to use Thrash, then okay, I can get myself a 4/4 trample creature and maybe close the door on a game a little bit earlier or quicker than I would have. And that's just fine. I'm not playing it though in Standard for Threat, I'm playing it for Thrash. That's where this card is really going to excel. You'll find this in Stompy decks going forward from this point in the format, no doubt. In Limited, well, it's a premium removal spell for Standard, so you know it's going to be a premium removal spell in Limited too. It's a rare, so you would expect it to be good. You won't see it a whole lot. Definitely first pickable in a draft. If you get to play with this in Sealed or Draft, you're going to be real happy with it. Alright, so those are the cards for today. We're starting to wind down. We're getting to the last few days now. Friday, the full set will be revealed, and we'll begin our full set review. And of course, until then, we'll be doing these recap videos for you every day. But until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page, as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.